Two Covington, Tennessee women fighting for their lives after being shot multiple times, and police are working to find the gunman.
First tonight, we're learning more about the white Mercedes connected to both the murder of rapper Young Dolph and a fatal shooting in Covington, Tennessee 5 days prior.
Just a bad nightmare that you can't wake up from. That's about what it feels like.
A Tipton County family speaking out after one of their relatives is gunned down in Covington late last year.
Police believe the car used in Anita Wilson's murder is the same one used in the killing of young Dolph.
Welcome back to the channel once again, fam. A Tipton County family has been waiting weeks for a break in the case after one of their relatives was gunned down in Covington late last year. They believe it could come soon as law enforcement zeroes in on the suspect for the death of rapper Young Dolph. It's been nearly 2 months since the death of Anita Wilson. The 57-year-old was leaving a high school football game back in November when someone shot up the car she was in, killing her and injuring another woman. Her daughter, Allison Bailey, was at home at the time. "I heard the gunshots because I'm so close to the area, and that was my best friend. I just can't even put it in words," Bailey said. "It's sort of like a bad nightmare that you can't wake up from. That's about what it feels like." Lord knows I know that feeling. Covington police said they believed the same car was used in the killing of young Dolph and Wilson. U.S. Marshals identified Justin Johnson as a suspect in the killing of young Dolph, leaving Wilson's family to wonder if justice may soon be coming. "We don't know all the details yet, but we do know it's a good chance once they find this guy we'll get closure," Bailey said. Several warrants have been issued for Johnson, including first-degree murder. While none of the charges have linked Wilson's case, her family is hopeful that that'll change. "Yes, we want them to catch him. Yes, he deserves what he's gonna get. And yes, we're happy about that. That's not gonna bring back our mother." Covington police said they're still waiting on results from forensic evidence before they can link the case. What can you say other than, I really hope myself that they get closure also, in one way or another. It's never a fun thing to go through, losing someone, especially not to the hands of violence, unnecessary violence, like what happens literally every day, like what's happening right now. It's not that hard to be safe, and it's not that hard to just love somebody. It takes a lot less to love than it does to hate. Everybody knows that. Let's start acting on it. Doesn't take much. But that's a lecture for another day, or every day, and every moment.
Sir. Good morning. Need to speak up a little bit louder. The court reporter here has to write down everything that's said. Of course, I need to speak up a little bit louder. You can take the mask down if you want to. Yes, sir.
Good morning, John.
Mr. Johnson, what school did you go to, sir?
I went to Woodbury High School.
How far did you get in school?
12th grade.
Did you finish the 12th grade?
Yes, sir.
Did you ever get a GED, sir?
No, sir.
Can you read and write okay, Mr. Johnson?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Johnson, answer those questions because the law requires you to answer, okay?
Okay.
A couple of things, Mr. Johnson. You were charged by way of an indictment 2204769, charged with conspiracy to commit first-degree murder.
Yes, sir.
That Class A felony carried anywhere from 15 to 60 years in prison. You're pleading guilty on a superseding information, I-2300019, that charges you with 3 counts of accessory after the fact. That's an E-felony, carries up to 6 years in prison. You understand that, sir?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Johnson, you have a right to have this charge submitted to the grand jury. When you enter a guilty plea on this information, you're waiving. You've given up your rights to have this case of accessory after the fact submitted to the grand jury. That case comes to court quicker when you plead on that information. The state will make you the best offer they will ever make on that information, but you're giving up, you're waiving your rights to have this case on the accessory submitted and reviewed by the grand jury. Do you understand that, sir?
Yes, sir.
Is that what you want to do, sir?
Yes, sir.
For the record, I would find that Mr. Corman in this court has advised Mr. Johnson has the right to have his charge with accessory after the fact reviewed by a grand jury. If the grand jury found probable cause, they could indict him. If they did not find probable cause, they would no deal this charge. They'll find that Mr. Johnson has made that decision intelligently and knowingly. Mr. Johnson, I'm going to show you a document for the record. This is a petition for waiver of trial by jury and request for acceptance of a plea of guilty. On that bottom right-hand corner where it reads defendant, did you sign that, sir?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Johnson, all of your rights are above your signature. Those are your state and federal constitutional rights. Did your attorney, Mr. Corman, go over those rights with you and explain them to you, sir?
Yes, sir.
Do you understand the rights that you're waiving and giving up today, sir?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Marcus Johnson, you heard Mr. Paul Hagerman, the prosecutor, recent statements in court a few minutes ago. When you enter this guilty plea, when you enter this change of plea today, you're telling the court that if you had a trial on your case, the state of Tennessee would bring witnesses to court. Those witnesses would testify under oath. They would say things that are similar, that are consistent with what the prosecutor just read. You're telling the court, Mr. Johnson, that if a jury believed those witnesses, that jury would have enough reason to find you guilty of accessory after the fact. You understand that?
Yes, sir.
You have an absolute right to have a trial on your case if you wanted one. You have a right to say, Judge Crawford, I'm not guilty of anything, and I want a trial. Judge, I am demanding a trial. And had this case been tried, you would have a right to confront and cross-examine those witnesses against you. Say you have to bring those folks to court. You can look at them in person. They would sit right there on that chair on the witness stand where you're seated. Your lawyer, Mr. Corman, would question those folks to see whether or not they are telling the truth. If a jury did not believe those witnesses, or if that jury thought they were lying or mistaken, that jury would find you not guilty and I would dismiss your case. You understand that, sir?
Yes, sir.
Had you gone to trial in this case, Mr. Johnson, you would also have the right to present proof. You can put on witnesses if you wanted to. You can present evidence. You don't have to do anything at a trial ever. If you wanted to and testify, you can tell the jury what happened. You can tell the jury your side of the story. If you chose to remain silent and not say a single word, I would tell that jury they cannot hold it against you for any reason at all. Do you understand that, sir?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Johnson, had you gone to trial in this case, if you had any witnesses that could help you, your attorney, Mr. Corbin, would send them a subpoena and have them come to court and testify for you. If your witnesses didn't show up, well, they just flat out refused to come to court, I would have those folks arrested by the sheriff. I would make your witnesses come in. I would make them testify. And if I had to, Mr. Johnson, I would put them in jail until your case was tried. Do you understand that, sir?
Yes, sir.
Had you gone to trial and had a jury found you guilty of anything, you can appeal any conviction the jury gave you. You can appeal any punishment that I gave you. The Court of Criminal Appeals would grant you a new trial or even dismiss your case if that court found mistakes had been made in your trial. If you could not afford an attorney, I would appoint someone for you free of charge to handle your appeal. Do you understand that, sir?
Sir.
Mr. Marcus Johnson, when you enter this change of plea, when you enter this guilty plea, you waive, you give up all those rights. You ask this court to find you guilty without a trial. And Mr. Johnson, both sides are recommending that I do not sentence you today, that a delayed execution of these judgments is set this case for a sentencing hearing. And at that sentencing hearing, Mr. Johnson, you'll be sentenced somewhere between 6 and 12 years in prison. Now, is that the group you have to stay in Tennessee, sir?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Johnson, you've been sworn to tell the truth. You understand that, sir?
Yes, sir.
Everything that you say under oath has to be true. If you do not tell the truth, the state could indict you for perjury. That carries up to 12 years in prison. Do you understand that, sir?
Yes, sir.
Before I continue with this guilty plea colloquy, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Hagerman has asked the court's permission to ask you some questions. You waive your right to remain silent when you enter this guilty plea. So listen to the questions that Mr. Hagerman asked of you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Make sure you answer those questions truthfully. You understand that?
Yes, sir.
If Mr. Hagerman and Ms. Mond said, Judge Coffey, we don't believe Mr. Jamarcus Johnson has been truthful, they're going to ask the court to vacate this guilty plea. They will strike this guilty plea, and your case will go back to the same status as was before this information was found. You understand that, sir?
Yes, sir.
Any questions, sir?
No, sir.
Mr. Hagerman, you may proceed, sir.
Mr. Johnson, we have talked before, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And when we talked, you told me about meeting with your half-brother, Justin. He's your half-brother, is that right?
Yes, sir.
You told me about meeting with your half-brother, Justin, about a week before Junior, is that right?
Yes, sir.
You told me at that time that he gave you a car, is that right?
Yes, sir.
You told me at that time he also gave you his cellular telephone, is that correct?
Correct.
You told me that, or did you tell me that afterwards you used that cellular telephone at his request?
Yes, sir.
Did you describe to me a scenario in which you would place one phone up to another while Justin was on another phone for the benefit of his parole or probation officer?
He was called to get somebody's number, and I would put my phone down on the bed, and I put somebody else's phone right there and let them talk to each other.
And you told me about the times that you did that, is that correct? And you also described times not just with the probation or parole officer, but also with an individual known to you as C.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you now know that individual to be Cornelius Smith, is that
Yes,
right? And you described to me, and you turned this phone over, and in it were text messages with this individual C, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And some of these text messages, some of what you witnessed was conversation with regard to money that Justin would be getting to see. Is that correct?
He asked for money, yes, sir.
Asked for money.
Yes, sir.
Is that correct?
Yeah. He was asking for money for somebody else, from somebody else.
Okay, and that somebody else was referred to as Unc, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this would be money that C asked for from Justin that Justin was going to get from Unc.
Yes, sir.
Is that correct? You described all that to me.
Yes, sir.
You've also looked at some photographs that included one of your half-brother in a particular outfit, and you identified Justin Johnson, your half-brother, in the photograph.
Yes, sir.
Do you understand that one day you may be called to testify in trial on this matter?
Yes, sir.
Will you tell the truth at that time?
Yes, Mr. Hagerman. Mr. Corbin, you have any questions of DeMarcus Johnson?
No question. Thank you, Judge.
Mr. Marcus Johnson, the felonies that you pled guilty to, accessory after the fact, is a Class E felony. It carries anywhere technically from 1 day to 6 years in prison. You understand that, sir?
Yes, sir.
You have agreed under what's called a hybrid guilty plea, State versus Mailer and Hicks, State versus Hicks, in which you're agreeing to plead outside of your range. You're not a range 2 offender. You understand that? In order to be a range 2 offender, you have to have 2 prior felony convictions. You don't have any felony convictions. You understand that?
Yes, sir.
You can agree to plead outside of your range as long as it's within the range of punishment for that crime, that E felony, as long as you're doing that in your best interest. You understand that? So you agree to plead outside of your range as a multiple range 2 offender. That range 2 sentence will carry anywhere from 2 to 4 years in prison. And you've also agreed that at your sentencing hearing, you will be sentenced to consecutive sentences on these 3 counts. So it's a minimum sentence of 6 years in prison to as much as 12 years in prison. Do you understand that, sir? You understand normally, unless you make that agreement, you cannot be sentenced to more than 2 years in prison. If they were run consecutive, it would be a total sentence of 6. Do you understand that? Mr. Johnson, once the court sentences you, you lose all of your rights to citizenship. You understand that, sir?
Yes, sir.
If you're sentenced on this case, in order to serve the sentence in prison, you'll be a convicted felon. That felony conviction will be on your record forever. You understand that, sir?
Yes, sir.
If you were sentenced to a penitentiary sentence, even placed on probation, would have to render you infamous. For the rest of your life, you lose all of your rights to citizenship. Then, since you lose the right to vote, you cannot vote until you completed that sentence, and the right to vote was restored or given back to you by a judge in circuit court or by a certificate from the Tennessee Department of Corrections. Do you understand that, sir? As a convicted felon, Mr. Johnson, you could never serve on a trial jury. You can never possess. You can never carry. You can never buy. You can never own any handguns, firearms, rifles, shotguns, pistols, ammunition, or even bullets. Mr. Johnson, if you had in your possession, in your hands, in your pockets, on a house or car or any other place, if you possess any firearms, if you have one single bullet in your possession, United States Prosecution Federal Court, unlawfully possessing a firearm as a convicted felon, you can be sentenced to federal penitentiary for a long time. If you possess any handgun or firearm, Tennessee can prosecute you for that. That carries up to 30 years in state prison. Do you understand that, sir? Yes, sir. Again, you've been sworn to tell the truth, and everything that you say has to be true. You understand that, sir?
Yes, sir.
Do you have any questions about the rights that you waived, the guilty plea you entered, or this agreement you have with the state of Tennessee, Mr. Jamarcus Johnson?
No, sir.
Have any complaints about anything that Mr. Corman has done since he's been your lawyer, sir?
Yes, sir.
How long has Mr. Corman been your lawyer, Mr. Johnson?
8 months.
Did he get this 7 months? Did he get discovery for you?
Yes, sir.
Did he let you know what to say would try to prove if you had a trial?
Yes, sir.
Did you have anything that you wanted Mr. Corman to investigate for you?
No, sir.
Do you have any complaints at all about anything that Mr. Corman has done or has not done since he's been your lawyer?
No, sir.
Do you also understand, Mr. Johnson, that part of this agreement, this memorandum, adopted by the parties, will be filed as a public record with your guilty plea? You're pleading guilty to those 3 counts in that information. You're also agreeing that you be sentenced as a range 2 offender, even though you are in fact only a range 1 offender. You understand that? You also are agreeing that those 3 felony convictions will be served consecutively to each other or one another, making that an effective sentence of minimum of 6 years to as much as 12 years in prison. You've also agreed that the state of Tennessee has not made you any promises, no recommendations to the sentence other than they would detail to the court any cooperation and truthful testimony or statements that you have given that may have aided in the prosecution. As Mr. Hagerman just told you, if some of those other cases go to trial, Justin Johnson or Cornelia Smith or Hernandez Godan, if those cases go to trial, the state of Tennessee might actually call you as a witness. You understand that? You understand you waive your right to remain silent, and you could in fact be compelled to testify if those other cases are tried.
Yes, sir.
You'll also be supervised by Shelby County Pretrial Services. They reporting all parties recommending that you be released on bond in an amount of $25,000. And once you make that bond, Mr. Johnson, you have to report to Shelby County Pretrial Services. They're reporting. We'll file that order with this guilty plea also. You would have a curfew from 9 o'clock at night until 5 o'clock in the morning. You have to be at home every day, all day, until your case is disposed of, unless you are working. I want to encourage you to work, and if you are working, you have to provide to pretrial services proof that you are in fact working. Otherwise, from 9 o'clock at night until 5 o'clock in the morning, you have to be at home every day, every night. You understand that? You'll also be in order to enroll in any other programs that pretrial services deem either group programs or individual programs, such as random drug screens. You have to check in with these folks automatically, regular contact with the person who supervises bond, and you also cannot possess a firearm while this case is pending and while sentencing is pending. Do you understand that, sir? Do you have any questions about any of those conditions? Marcus Johnson, I'm found for the record, the attorney, Mr. Joshua Corman, has represented you satisfactorily. I found that Mr. Corman and this court have explained all your rights to you. I find that you understand those rights and that you waived it. You've given up those rights intelligently and knowingly. I do find that there is a factual basis. There is a legally sufficient reason for this guilty plea, which has been entered freely and voluntarily. And upon you plead guilty to information I-23-00019, counts 1, 2, and 3, Class E felonies of accessory after the fact. Mr. Johnson, it is a judgment of this court that you are guilty. The court is going to delay the execution of these judgments. It will delay a sentence on this case until Ms. Corman, Ms. Mine, Mr. Hagman, do you have a recommended date for the next setting on this case?
I think we get about 45, or somewhere between 45, about 60 days.
60 days is August 10th, Thursday, August 10th is the day for all Warriors.
That's a good day, Judge. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Mr. Johnson, we're going to delay the execution of these judgments. We're going to delay the sentencing on this case to a sentencing hearing on August 10th, 2023. Be back in this courtroom at 9 o'clock that morning, unless that date changes, and stay in touch with Mr. Corman in case the date does change. But I'll see you back in court on August 10th, that's a Thursday at 9 o'clock that morning. Make sure you go to pretrial services on Tuesday morning. They will not be open on, they will be open on Monday. We won't be in court on Monday. Go to pretrial services on Monday morning, June the 12th at 9 o'clock. They're on the 8th floor in this building. One of the deputies will make a copy of the pretrial pretrial day reporting order for you. Take that with you. Go talk to those folks Monday morning at 9 o'clock. They will supervise this bond. Make sure you maintain contact with them. Make sure you answer those calls and those curfews. And make sure you commit to those random drug screens, because that will be required as a condition of this bond. Stay out of trouble. Don't get yourself arrested again. Be safe. And I'll see you back in court on Thursday morning, August the, I think it said August 9th, Thursday morning, August 10th. Thursday morning, August 10th at 9 o'clock. Any questions, sir?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Johnson, step down from the witness stand and see you in 2 months, sir. Thank you, sir. Mr. Hagerman and Ms. Munn.
Yes, sir.
The indicted case, 2204769, do you want to dispose of that today or carry it?
I'm sure it'll reset to that same date, Your Honor.
Madam Clerk, show the other case, 2204769, separate report on Thursday, August the 10th.
If the Ms. Clerk could make a note that the bond that Your Honor set covers both cases.
The bond, $25,000 covers all this case, the information case, and the indicted case 2204769.
I'll go ahead and get this out of the way right now. Mr. Paul, you've dropped yet another, relatively long, I must say, comment. And again, you seem to have a pretty good talking point, but I will also reference this. I've seen a few comments that have said that some of it may seem like it was said prior. Now, you know I'm not going to throw any accusations, and I'm still going to highlight some of the points that you made because, again, it's pretty good talking points. Don't let me find out otherwise now, because surely you wouldn't want to see a grown man cry. Or you get the idea. Anyway, here we go. To start with, as is my favorite way to do nowadays anyway, Paul quotes by saying, "This is all alleged." One more time.
This is all alleged. This is all alleged.
This is all alleged. This is all alleged. I sincerely hope that was enough times of me saying that for y'all to understand that this is all alleged and not being presented as fact. Also, I hope that proves to y'all that this isn't a voice changer. This is my voice. Anyway, let's talk from a street standpoint and a business standpoint, says Paul. CMG has had their hands involved in the streets for a long time, especially the people at the top of CMG. The people who are close to Yo Gotti, aka his day ones or family, have already done state and federal bids. We all know most criminals go to prison and come out smarter, or they return. Not to mention, some of his day ones are still tied to the streets. The city of Memphis has had over 3,000 murders within the last 10 years. 90% of those murder cases are tied to retaliation. These numbers are not including the murders connected to out-of-state murders. Within the last 5 years, the city of Memphis, the governor of Tennessee, and investors have signed over $40 billion in redevelopment deals, which will take place within the next 6 years as of 2021. We all know these areas target the black community, aka gentrification. Pause. I don't give two damns about how you feel or if you care about Paul, but that last sentence, that is true. Continuing. Now ask yourself, would you invest your money into a dangerous city if there wasn't a catch? Therefore, the feds did Operation Hide and Seek that arrested over 341 people, and 241 of those were for felony charges. Those people are definitely going to talk, which will close the case on the RICO charges and federal charges on a lot of people. When you have a RICO charge, it takes 10 years of crimes for it to stick good and heavy. Therefore, within the last 10 years, a lot of crimes and murders took place. The murder of young Dolph was one of them. In 2021, the federal agencies paid out at least $548 million to informants working for the FBI, the DEA, and the ATF in recent years, according to government audits. When you cut a deal with the feds, it's easy for them to give you a new identification and place you somewhere else in the US where no one knows you. But watch what I tell you. A lot of people at CMG are going to get hit with RICO charges, and a lot of other Memphis street organizations too. People are cutting deals every day, and everyone who's your day one will not ride for you every single time, especially if they already did a bid for you. Wrapping it up with a 100 emoji. And that ends Mr. Paul's quote, or comment rather, for this time around. So, if you've stuck with me so far, as a lot of y'all seem to be doing, which we really, seriously, all jokes aside, appreciate that, by the way. Watching these videos from beginning to end, you couldn't possibly do anything more to support us, and for that we sincerely appreciate you. But if you have hung around and listened to everything that I've said and possibly everything that you've read over the last few minutes, you can't argue that it's not a worthy talking point. The talking point isn't about what's right, what's wrong, who's right, who's wrong, what's right, what's wrong, or what's fact or what's fiction. It's simply a good talking point for what's going on with everything right now. Of course, the be-all end-all is what's the truth. Well, even once the official authorities have told us the truth, we don't know that that's the truth. So I don't see a problem with speculation as long as you keep it as that and you understand that it's that. Speculation. There's my rant. We're coming at you with another fan theory on the young Dolph case. And man, when I tell you these things are getting elaborate. So elaborate, in fact, that I'm honestly having trouble, deciding whether they're right or whether they're wrong or whether they're crazy or whether they're brilliant. You guys decide. Just check this out. Quote, "Pay attention to the worker in the red shirt. She's the same lady who took young Dolph's order, red shirt/head wrap, as she films Dolph's body from multiple angles as the cookie store's owner, Maurice Hill, is caught. as he looks out for MPD as the worker creeps between the cars on the side of Makita's Cookies to the back of the store and tosses something in the woods. From there, she dashes through the back gate of Makita's and quickly creeps back through the back gate to the side of Family Dollar's next door. Pay attention to the communication from the cookie store owner and the young lady in the red shirt. Kia Moore said the $150,000 GoFundMe was partly for therapy for this lady who was supposedly so traumatized that she never wants to see a cookie again. So that means she retired. So why is Makita's Cookie still so supportive of this mysterious lady who took Dolph's order and also took pics and videos of him deceased while stabbing over his arm and ran when she saw the cameras? End quote. Well, there you have it. I'm trying. I'm doing my best to wrap my head around some of these, and I'm not gonna lie. This isn't exactly something to be entertained by in the literal sense of the word, but I'll be damned if it ain't somewhat like, wow. Where are these thoughts? Where is this energy when we trying to figure out how to do actual stuff that, matters in the world? Not saying that trying to find someone's murderers isn't something that's important, but man, this kind of energy invested in almost anything else, positive that is, of course, could lead to a whole lot of good. But, well, there's an old saying that says that bad times bring good times, but I didn't think it'd be in the sense of people getting popular because of internet detective theory. But I gotta admit, again, even after saying all that, there's a certain amount of quote unquote validity that you gotta have a little bit of respect for when it comes to some of these people and the levels that they're willing to go to with this stuff. But hey, what do I know? Okay, I'm gonna level with y'all. At this point, I'm in therapy and y'all are my therapists, because you have no idea how many of these fan theories on certain things and fan facts, if you would want to call them that I've read through. Trust me, I could have presented you with a lot more. These are just the ones that make somewhat sense. Okay, just bear with me. You'll see what I mean. Check this out. Quote. You know what? End quote. I'm surprised nobody said anything yet about me always saying quote before I read some of these. I just gotta let y'all know these ain't my words. Some people don't seem to understand that. Anyway, back to the story. Quote, a 61-year-old witness to the murder of young Dolph told Memphis police that she witnessed the two shooters in the white Benz and two more shooters coming from the back of Makita's Cookies and walk inside a Family Dollar. Moments later, more gunfire erupted from outside while she was in Family Dollar with the two shooters. The Family Dollar clerk, a woman, then pulls out a gun and told everyone in the store to stay inside while she went outside and risked her own life. But why? This tells us that the Family Dollar employee was in on the hit. Her job was to limit the amount of witnesses that were in Family Dollar and to make sure that the shooters were clear before she let anyone out of the store, including the other two shooters, and possibly suppress the security video as well. End quote. See why I feel like I'm in therapy? Surely somebody out there can sympathize or empathize with me at this point, man, because this stuff is getting crazier and crazier. But although I have no way to prove that this 61-year-old witness told the police that, but again, humor it. Let's say she did. That's a pretty interesting fact. Judge Coffey orders both Justin Johnson and Cornelia Smith to find their lawyers by Friday, as he will not grant them more time to figure out their finances to hire outside attorneys. So to recap, for anybody who isn't following the story as closely or maybe isn't, up to date with everything, the trial for young Dolph's alleged killers, Justin Johnson and Cornelia Smith, has one big problem. The duo is struggling to find attorneys. Both men appeared in a Memphis courtroom on January 28th regarding their legal representation. During that court date, they asked the Judge Lee Coffey if they could have more time to find outside representation instead of going with a public defender. With something as serious as a murder trial, a public defender is probably not in anyone's best interest. Of course, neither should murder be. But anyway, asking for more time is also a bold move, especially for Justin Johnson, who claimed he would turn himself in, then went on the run, and had to be captured by U.S. Marshals. Perhaps, had he turned himself in, the judge would have granted his request. But instead, Judge Coffey declined and made February 4th their hard deadline for representation. So ready or not, they'll face the Tennessee legal system starting at the end of the week. So this week, we may begin to understand what went into the senseless crime that took a man that was the hero of his neighborhood from us way too soon. And hopefully, we won't just be left with more questions as this gets rolling, because I really just don't feel like dealing with any more, ooh, did this, ooh, did that, ooh, did they, ooh, didn't they? I just really don't feel like dealing with it anymore, personally. But you already know the drill. You guys let me know what you feel this Friday is gonna bring, and what this case in general is gonna bring. Do you guys think that this will finally get some kind of closure? Some kind of finite answer that we can actually all agree on? Or is this just gonna be another book that's just waiting to be written that for some odd reason is gonna be full of questions? I really hope it's not the latter. I really hope not. But you guys let me know down below what you think is gonna happen, and we'll keep you guys updated with the latest news as it gets released. So, with that said, we've been I Got the Dirt TV. You guys have been great as always. Keep it locked here for the latest updates, the latest breaking news, and the latest trending stories. And we'll catch you guys on the next go round. You already know what I'm about to say, and you already know I'm gonna say it anyway, but I'm gonna say it like this because I feel like it. Be safe in the meantime, baby, and we'll catch you next time. Peace. That was cool. I don't care what you say. Shut up.